So, hi everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of the Be Ready podcast. This episode, we have two phenomenal mothers and educators and just people who impact the community in such meaningful ways, Kamilah and Jania. So, before we get started today, can y'all introduce yourselves?
Sure.
Kamilah, we'll start with you.
Okay. My name is Kamilah McCallum-Turnquest, right? I am currently a K-5 ELA district administrator for Orange County Public Schools, and I have been teaching for upwards of a decade and a half, kindergarten through 8th grade, all subjects, but the last chunk of my career was spent in reading. So, and looking for those opportunities to bridge the gap or close it completely.
Yes, please.
That's cool. So I'm Jania Fuller. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I am the Children's Home Society of Florida Community Partnership School Director at OCPS, Academic Center for Excellence. I am a wife. I am a mom. I'm a Central Floridian. I don't know if that's the word, but born and raised here, lived here pretty much my entire life. So yeah, that's me.
All right. Well, thank y'all for joining us. So today we're filming on June 21st, and this is the Friday of Juneteenth week. I'm just going to throw it out there as a whole week, not just a federal holiday that I did not get off from work. That
I didn't get it
either. But yeah, so Juneteenth was a couple of days ago. So that's where I think we should start. So how did you all celebrate Juneteenth? Did you celebrate Juneteenth? And when you celebrated, what did you do?
I went to work. That was my celebration. Unfortunately, there was a great event that I would have loved to go to had I been in town over the weekend to take the kids to, especially. But I did have a conversation with my two sons because they had never heard of Juneteenth and had no idea about it. My younger son said he thought it was June 16th because it's 15th. So, so I spent a little time talking to them about it. But it was like a quick conversation. I think that, it was just to kind of give them the idea of it because they had never heard of it. So,
yeah.
So we spent the latter half of the day driving because I had to go to a conference. But my youngest went to preschool for part of the day. So we definitely were like in our Juneteenth, like Black Pride gear. We weren't having like a whole lot of conversations about it. I did also try to explain it to my 4-year-old, which was a complete fail. He came back with like, so he asked me like why one of his white friends was allowed to like live here now, and if we had like arrested white people. So like I didn't do a good job. And what I really should have done was like read the book that we have about it that is in like preschool language. But next year, we'll try again next time. But yeah, that was
take two.
Take two. Yeah, we tried to only spend money like in Black businesses that day, or like restaurants and those kind of things. So, and social media, like I posted a lot of things and tried to like reshare things that Black creators had posted on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, all of those kind of things. Yeah.
Love it.
I think it's a hard conversation to have, but such a necessary conversation. Like my older son, my stepson is 11. So he was able to get a better grasp of it. But then my younger son is turning 7. So he had a lot of questions along the same lines of the 4-year-old in terms of like, but I have white friends, like, to be friends with them type of thing. So it's always really interesting to hear like their take and trying to find the balance between age appropriate, but I still need you to know this and know history, like know who you are and where we're coming from.
Right. Yeah.
I applaud y'all for having the conversation.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna ask her, how did she approach that conversation with both of her children? Like, did you start with questions, or did you like have
well,
like
so
just go out and listen?
On the OCPS billboard, before I dropped them to summer camp, it said Happy Juneteenth. And so I started there, like, you have it, it's on the billboard. Did they teach you about this in school?
Right.
No.
Nothing. So this is like, for me, that then became like a feeble attempt
Right.
at like, oh yeah, let me throw you a bone is what it felt like. So I was like, let me bridge. Yeah. So I just started there. I asked them about it. Like, have you ever heard of it? Do you know what this is? And then they both said no, have no idea. Is it June 16th? Is it June 13th? What about 14th? It's not 11. And then it just kind of went from there. But it was very short because not only is the content heavy, but also, you know, we were in the car before summer camp and they were real focused on Wheels Down Wednesday.
Right.
Yeah. No, we started the morning and was like, Happy Juneteenth.
Yeah.
We do for like Christmas and everything else. Like, my oldest son is like, yeah, let me get my Juneteenth. Like, let's go. Like, freedom for Black people. My older was like, what? Like, I was like, It's one of those.
I applaud y'all for trying. I didn't even try. My son is 5, and I felt like it was gonna go left because I mentioned, you know, it was. I mentioned this before. I went to read him that book by Tay Diggs, Chocolate Me. And so he was like, he went into whole, like, he doesn't want to have brown skin. He wants to be like brown, but with a little bit of vanilla too. So I'm thinking maybe he was going for light skin. I don't know. But he was like, because he didn't want people to not play with him because of the color of his skin. Well, that's what happens in the book. So then I felt like, well, man, did he not have an issue? Maybe he didn't have an issue with people like not playing with him, or maybe he felt confident, you know, in his skin and everything. And here I am introducing this book, trying to help, and I'm introducing him to a concept that he has no concept of, right? Like, I'm creating a problem when I'm trying to solve a problem. So I think that made me a little bit hesitant to delve into the Juneteenth conversation. I'm like, where is this going to go?
I get
that. Hello.
Speaking of which, hi.
Hello.
This is the person who promised me that he was going to, if I let him stay home while I film the podcast, he was going to stay out here and watch a movie. So
I'm not watching. I'm watching.
Okay, can you go watch your show and close the door? Love you, long time.
No. Just appearance.
So
that was so appropriate. Right now we understand.
Right. Now you understand why I was not having the conversation.
Yeah.
So, but me and Kevin, we went to see a movie, and then
it's called Bad Boys.
We went to see Bad Boys. And so then we and we were wearing our shirt. So the icy color shirt, which I created, and my niece Brandy did the artwork for. We worked with a Black photographer to do the photo shoot and a Black marketing specialist to do the branding. So I really was like feeling like, okay, even though I didn't talk to my kids about Juneteenth, I didn't go to any of the events. Like, I supported Black businesses and I spent time with my family, which I felt like are two things that I would not have been able to do as an enslaved person, right? Like, I was walking around with my kids just thinking about, like, man, our ancestors, not all of them even got to experience whole families because the kids are being sold off and things like that. So, that it was really, I think, a reflective Juneteenth for me.
Yeah. I think that's always like my thought process, right? Like, just the being grateful for where I am and what we have now, right? Not just to be like heavy and like be extra militant, but like, man, look how far we've come. Imagine Juneteenth, 1865, like it wouldn't have been like this. So I think that's appropriate.
Very true.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to share to like get our conversation going is this experience that I had. So recently somebody said to me, like, hey, you do all these things with your kids and you know that when they get older, they're not going to remember them. right? Basically saying that, by the time they hit adolescence, they will forget the things, like their memory will literally not allow them to remember some of the things they did, 5 years old and prior. And so at the time, I just like brushed it off and was like, oh, yes, they will, because I remember things from when I was little. But as I was reflecting on it, I'm like, man, I missed the opportunity for a really big conversation about how exposing kids to a variety of things, like how important it is to expose them to a variety of ideas and concepts from 0 to 3, especially, and then also from 3 to 5, like how that helps them learn when they get to school. So as educators and people who are just knowledgeable about child development, I wanted to share that experience with y'all and see what you thought about it.
Well, first, you absolutely are doing a phenomenal job in creating those memories. And while the child may not remember on this day at this time with these people, that memory tile has been created, right? And it's going to become part of their working memory, the more exposure and the more relative experiences that they have. Like they'll have somewhere to grow in. So if like they go to the farm on this one day at 4 years old, they may not remember this is the day we went to the farm, but they are going to remember those animals when they now later on they're reading a book, right? And it's about the cow. Oh, we saw this on a farm. That's all they need, because what you did in taking them there, even at 2, 3, 4, you created the roots that are going to start to sprout whatever flower is coming, and it doesn't have to come now. Even when we're in the classroom, there is a vast difference in students who are able to comprehend and like fully like grasp and become like proficient readers when they've had no experiences, when they've never read these books. It's like, imagine growing a flower with no roots. The wind is going to come along and blow it away, and it's going to serve its purpose at that moment. But then there are no kinesthetic, tactile opportunities. There is no audio. There's no visual to sink that into the working memory and then eventually get to the long-term memory to then become automatic for them. So it may not be, I remember on Tuesday at this day, this is going to happen, but it is there and it's going to show later on.
Yeah. It makes me think of this article of like curriculum as windows and mirrors by Emily Style, and talking about how like learning is contextual and it's also personal, right? So when they go into the classroom, like, yes, I can give you this book and have you read about something, but if you have this experience that you can draw on, that just furthers like your comprehension of that and your success in the classroom. And so I think also like on the other side of that, there's a book that The Body Keeps Score, right? And it's talking about trauma.
Yes.
Right? So like our body holds on to that. And so the more positive experiences that we have, like the better it is for our brain, for our body, like we hold on to that. And that really helps us build resilience too, so that when trauma does happen, which it will, you're able to like bounce back from that sooner. So I think, yes, academically, it's really important to have these experiences, but I think those are also like positive childhood experiences that help our students like function better emotionally and socially as well. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm going to repeat that of like, yeah, they may not remember that on June 19th of 2024, like we had this, we went to this field trip or we did this thing, but their body will keep that and their brain will keep those memories as they like grow and get older. I think that person just may also was like, I don't want to do anything.
Ooh.
That's it too.
There's that.
Sorry.
Like even now, like even though I think it's really true, because I can't tell you how many times Destiny has said, "Mommy, remember that time we went to da 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 da?" And I was like, "You remember that?" She was like 2 or 3 years old, and so like even so, and like and then coming to school and then us learning about those things, she was able to have something to pull from. It's like, oh, I remember that. Now it makes more sense because now I can actually put put into words what I experienced,
Right.
even though I didn't understand it at the time. Now that I'm learning about it, I had a good foundation to stand on.
Right.
But like, even we went to DC in the summertime, and we came back. We were in the process of learning about the American Revolution, and the fact that she could now tell you, I mean, specific things about it, because that's what she experienced when we went to Yorktown and Jamestown, and we went to visit all the monuments and all of that kind of stuff too on the way. And it was amazing. So don't stop that, girl. Because somebody don't know.
Oh no, I'm not gonna stop. I'm just mad because I missed the opportunity for a really good conversation. Y'all know I'm a teacher, so we love a teachable moment in or out of the classroom. And I was like, dang,
Where is the
how did I let it slide?
Yeah.
But maybe they'll watch the podcast. There you go. Send them the podcast. Be like, hey.
Maybe
Check this
so.
out.
Maybe so. I don't remember who it was, so
Just put it out there. Somebody, yeah.
But it makes me think too about like how when kids don't have that wide base of experiences to draw back on, like how hard it is to catch up.
Oh,
So like one of the experiences I had as a teacher was going to we did like a study abroad in Spain for like 2 weeks, and it was really helpful for me because I was teaching students who were learning English at the time, so I could see what it was like to be immersed in a language that is not your first language.
Yeah.
And so trying to like decipher the language and then build the context and then have like the social background. Like I know how as an adult I felt behind in so much. So I can only imagine like how kids feel when they're behind and don't have that knowledge. One more thing, then I'm gonna have to be a mom for a second. But the other thing that I was gonna say is that Kamilah, we were having a similar conversation recently, and I remember you saying like it doesn't take you as a parent like being a teacher or having to have a lot of money to do really expensive things, or to like immerse your kids in a particular experience over and over again. It takes just like one time to kind of spark that knowledge that, you know, then creates that path that can be built upon later. So talk among yourselves. I'll be right back.
But it is
fair share.
Right. It's true though, because one of the things like DeShawn and I were saying, like you don't have to necessarily be a trained teacher, but when you take your kids with you, like to the grocery store, right? You're talking about it. Oh, this fruit is strange. Look at this. This is the information age. Let them feel it. Let them touch it. Let them smell it. Let me Google it real quick. Oh, this came from Timbuktu. That's a country in Africa. Did you know that? No, I didn't know that. Let's, and it becomes like a learning experience together, because then they're going to take this. Oh, we read about this one time, and now they have those roots to call on, right? So now what they're doing is going to take hold even more, and then they can grow and build on that. You can't build on something that's not there. And in schools, and we see it all the time. Like I work with developing the curriculum for the entire district, K-5. And one of the things we really pushed for was to have a section before any text that we read to build schema and just talk about the text, right? Yes. I don't want to ask you these benchmark aligned questions. Let's have a conversation. Let's create those text to text, text to self, text to world connections. And let's just get you, number one, excited about reading, but then also like, so you can feel invested, like, oh, we put videos like to build that background knowledge and have a conversation surrounding that, because then that's what we can build on. Yes. And we'll see the difference between like the affluent schools, the schools that are not your Title I in like a richer area, and the schools that are in a lower socioeconomic area. The difference in their reading scores almost always trace back to the building of that background. If I'm, reading a story about a bouquet of flowers, and I've never seen anybody buy any flowers. I've never heard this called a bouquet. I thought it was just like a bunch of flowers. Then how can I now understand what you're asking me to do and comprehend this concept in this text if I have no clue what you're talking about? So it's just like the simple little experiences. People also underestimate just talking to your kids.
Yep.
Having like they're little people. Talk to them, and that's starting to spark stuff, right? Because you're starting to lay that foundation that can be built on.
Yeah. So I like really that you said that, because as you were talking about going to the grocery store, I thought about just like, even outside of like looking at the fruits and the vegetables and what I'm buying, but even that like interaction, right? The social piece of it, like social skills are not a thing that like you can go and like read a book about, right? But you have to like model that and watch that, and how students like deal with like when they're upset or when they're frustrated or when you're hungry. And so even those experiences, if there is like, even in that, like the smallest thing, it's just like, how do you interact when you're asking for something? So I told you guys that we like came down for a conference, and I had my son call down to the front desk to ask for towels. And I was just like, can you call for towels, right? And so he calls, and I'm like listening to see kind of like what he's going to say. And so he starts with like, hello, may I have some towels? And it's just like, because you've watched people like have that conversation. And so maybe it wasn't 100% correct. Like maybe he forgot to say thank you at the end, but at least like you're starting to do some of that. And so when you go out into the real world, like I know that you can ask for towels, right? Or that you know how to like have some conversation with folks. So I think that's a really important piece too in those experiences, the social
and
part.
that's not even something that you have to sit down and do a lesson about. Like you're doing that all the time. So they're seeing it. So it's becoming this blossom that is blooming now because of what you are doing with him. So
So what else can parents do to build that background knowledge so kids are ready to learn?
I think honestly, like just take an interest, right? Like talk to your kids. We talked a lot about talking to them. The amount of time that is spent Googling this TikTok or like watching these reels or doing that can also be put into like, let me look for all of the free events that they have at the library. Let me find some of these random like festivals that are happening, like stuff you do like generally as an adult for yourself. Like, I wonder how I can include my kids, especially I don't have a babysitter. I don't have any family in town.
Right.
So capitalize on this opportunity. For me, I'm going to have fun. And for them, I'm helping them build.
Right.
I think about technology too. So I had this conversation with somebody recently, and she was like talking to me about ChatGPT and just AI in general, and how she feels like within the next 4 to 5 years, it's really going to revolutionize education, but there are going to be some schools and families left behind, the ones who are always right? Like we know the story. But one thing she taught me I thought was really cool. So we went on and she typed in like, her inquiry was act like an early childhood expert and suggest activities for like literacy activities for a 4-year-old, for example. And then, and we asked for like a 30-minute activity. And so it pulled out like a whole lesson plan. And it ended up, the topic wasn't literacy, but it was on like block sorting. So it was like the first 5 minutes, pull out the blocks and just kind of play with them and introduce them. Then the next 10 minutes, sort them by color. Then the next, so it took like 30 minutes, broke it down into 10 to 5 minute increments because their attention span isn't long. And it, was blocked. So it's dealing with like, building what am I thinking of?
The fine motor skills.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
So it's building those fine motor skills, like playing with the blocks. There was counting, there was sorting. So I think like that was a easy way to incorporate AI that I did not think about before, that gave an activity that I think an early childhood expert would actually suggest. And, building knowledge in like science and math. So something I think about a lot too, like, I work at UCF. So I recently went to a meeting about like how UCF is like the space university. And so they were just talking about all the things that are coming related to space. And so immediately I thought about, my own kids and the kids who are, in the communities that I work with. And I thought about like, what are ways that we can start algebraic thinking or computational thinking with kids when they are really young, so that their minds are ready to understand and enter the fields of tomorrow,
Right.
That's just something that's been on my mind, and a neat use of AI that I just
Right.
that I didn't think of, and it happened like this, So it took me back to when COVID first started. The first day I was on the couch in tears, and baby, it wasn't but lunchtime because my son was like 1.5, and I was like, I am not a 365, 24/7 mom. This is and what am I supposed to do with it? How long am I gonna be here? Like I grew into it, but I was legit on the couch crying the very first day. And so, that would have been a great resource for me to just be able to throw something in, throw a little inquiry in, and come up with an activity.
Yeah. I think those pieces are pretty cool, right? Like where we're able to use technology to help us build those things. Because even thinking about social media and maybe like looking at Reels or Instagram or in Facebook groups, like connect to like a mom's Facebook group or a parent's Facebook group and like learn about the different things that are going on that you can just like take your child to, or you could share with them. I think technology becomes an issue when we don't know how to use it appropriately.
Yes.
Like substitute that in for like experiences, but I don't think that it's always necessarily a negative piece. Because even thinking about like some of the theme parks, right, and like looking at what parents, like other parents, do at those theme parks, or how to get like in there for a discount, or those sorts of things. So just being creative with it, but not using it to fully like parent your child, I think is huge.
Yeah. And that makes me also think about like, is this public knowledge? Because how social media started one way and has kind of taken a turn with all of the different positive potential, right? But then it's on that darker side, it is just for some people like gossip. It is just likes. It is just this, just that. So for the parents who may not be knowledgeable to begin with, how do we get the word out to them to help them with understanding like, hey, this is a possibility of what you can do with this AI? And I think, DeShawn, you made a good point, like with UCF being the space school, right? Why can't we bring that down into like our elementary schools, starting to incorporate different ways for kids to use AI in their daily educational lives, so they can even bring the knowledge home to their parents. Like my phone just updated, and there's now like some sort of AI thing for that they keep offering me that's like attached to Google, attached to my text messages, attached to all this, and I'm not on the AI train yet.
Gotta get there. It's great.
I hear good things, but I also am like, I'm gonna get there.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
But like even that, like I see it being used in like education, but more often than not, I see it being used, as you said, Jania, as like a substitute for actual teaching. This is an easy way for this to happen. Let's just do this. And then on the conversely, like the kids then are now using it incorrectly, and you're getting 5 essays that say the same exact thing because let me just go ahead and get this from AI.
Yeah, definitely a tool, not a crutch. So this conversation also makes me think about a concept we talk about in education a lot, like summer slide, right? So like to speak of the learning loss that can occur during the summer when kids are not academically engaged. So I'm curious to know, what are you guys doing to combat it? It's summertime. Are there summer programs? But you can't let your kid go to any summer program. So how do you identify, like, what are the red flags or the green flags that you're looking for? So let's talk summer slide first. What are some things you're doing to combat it at home?
So for me, there's no difference.
Variation. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no difference from the school year.
Mm-hmm.
You go to school, you come home, we do practice, eat dinner, shower, then you get your free time on your tablet or whatever. So summer, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
We're still getting this practice, whether it's reading, math, science, whatever it is that you're doing, and we're doing it together, or it's a program like with typing club now. Students need to know how to type. You know, some sort of practice where it's engaging their mind and getting them ready for what's to come.
Yes.
There's no break. There's a break. Yeah. There's no we're not going like 9 weeks without you even picking up a book.
No. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like I don't know how that happens. Because I feel like there's so many things that you can be doing, and so we're in a really like privileged moment of going from 5th grade to 6th grade. So there are all these like 6th grade camps, like we did band camp and like the math camp and like those sorts of things that are offered like in the public school that you're going to at either like no cost or like a really low cost. And so being able to do that, and then also figuring out like little ways that we can offer experiences to my children, like we're at a conference, like what are some things that you can do if you come with me that are still gonna keep you like engaged and like learning and thinking, because you can't just sit for a while. So if that looks like a certain number of books that you need to be reading, or is it something that you want to read about? So we're big in baseball right now, so like learning about baseball, and even like what's your like workout going to be for you to like improve these skills, but you're still like reading, you're still engaging, like you're still critically thinking, even though like you don't know that's what you're doing, because you just think you're looking up your like workout,
right?
But I'm also making you like research this. So
exactly. Yes.
Latrice, I feel like you were gonna say you would do different things. Like,
well, there's like a variation of ages for our children. I thought it was perfect because all of us have different age. Well, I know Jania, you have a middle schooler and a smaller, younger child. So yes, and so me was just like reading a book. Like, okay, find a book of interest that you like to read, and that's what we're gonna read. And she just finished up Hatchet, because I know it's not on the list anymore, but I still felt like that was like very rich in vocabulary and just a good overall good experience, because my husband and I both read it in middle school. So she just finished that up. I think that's super important. We just we build projects together. We do things like whatever it is, like baking. Now she's taken a sudden interest in baking. So we're doing that. We watch shows. Yeah.
Okay.
So she wants to bake things. So science, all of that stuff, math, all of that. But she watches this particular show. It's called Girl to Farm or something like that on HBO Max or something like that. But it's a really cute show. But so we're doing that this summer just to kind of keep up with the learning. DeShawn, what about you? Because you got babies.
Yeah, I have babies, but reading. So reading with both of them. I did tell myself that at the beginning of the summer with Cameron, we're gonna read 2 books every night, and I'd be like, by the time you go to bed, okay, we just gonna read this 1 book. It's just 2 books.
Be realistic here.
It's not happening. But we have been reading with both of them. But I've also been trying to make it fun. So one thing they did is they went to exercise. So they went to exercise for my mom. And so when they showed me the videos, I was like, oh man, this is actually kind of like a science lesson, right? Because like you're learning about the body, and then they're like counting reps while they're doing the workout. So I thought that was good. We were baking. So like the measurements and so that piece, reading a recipe, all of that. And then one that turned out to be even better than I thought was making crayons. So I thought about it as just like fun. So we collected all the broken crayons around the house, and we put them in hot water and Dawn. And so when I realized like, all of this could be a teachable moment, not just fun, I started asking like questions. So for like Cam, I had him take the crayon before we put it in the hot water and try to take the paper off. and he couldn't. And then we put it in the hot water and it came off easily. So we were able to talk about like what's the difference and like why, like how the hot water caused it to dissolve. So then I had him like explain, oh, tell your dad what happened. But really I'm like getting him to explain what he learned.
Yes.
And he's like, what's that word that start with a D? So, you know, he learned a new vocabulary word, dissolve. And then you have to, once you break them down and you put them in like the silicone mold, you have to melt them in the oven. So he had to like find, you know, the right temperature. So it starts at 350, but he had to get down, I don't know, like 225. But he's, you know, in kindergarten. So well, just coming out of kindergarten. So he's still learning like his hundreds place and his 10 place. So he was doing all of that. And then for Jaxie, who I just thought would be along for the ride, he's picking up the crayons out of the box, out of the bowl. Like, what color is this? What color is this? What color is this? So I was like, oh, this is great. And Jaxie, he's very like when Ken was little, he's that kid that wants to tell you his numbers, his ABCs. He wants you to clap for him, all this stuff. Jackson is not like that. He's like, where's the ball? He want to play basketball, and he wants to eat. Like, that's pretty much his life. Those are his concerns. While he can count and he does know some letters, he really is not into performing them for you at all. And so I had really never even seen him color before either. And we got all kind of little books and crayons, but that is not what he gravitated toward. But with these little crayons, first his were like shaped like an ice cream cone. So first he was trying to eat them. Once we got past that, he colored like a madman. And he, for like days, he was carrying around this same piece of paper, like color, like this paper did not have any more white space. But he's like getting his little ice cream crayon and trying to color on that paper. So it was cool just to see him, you know, get interested in something new that I know is building the motor skills and talk about colors and, you know, things that he did not really seem to be interested in prior to. So that's what I'm trying to do. Just little things that we would maybe normally do, but like find the math or the science lesson in it and stuff like that.
So DeShawn, that ties everything that we just talked about together. Like it's the experiences that build the schema. It is what parents can do just like on the regular with their kids, and it prevents that gap from happening in the interim between when they're actually going to school the whole time. So it just then begs the question, because we all have teacher educator minds, right? So we are thinking these are teachable moments. Great, let me take advantage of it. What about the other people who don't think, oh, this is a teachable moment, right? So how do we get the word out? How do we build that interest with them? Because sometimes, especially in some communities, it's about like, I got to go to work at my first job here, then I got to go to work at my second job here. Then when I come home at night, I got to go, you know, do this, do that, do that. Kid's sleeping, somebody's watching him. I don't have time. And so how do we combat that? Because I think that will like wrap all of it into like a bow. Right.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is like building community too, right?
Yeah.
Of like understanding that.
Yes.
But the folks that are able to help with that, right? Like, so I think about at a community partnership school, right? We have all of these partners that are there. And so like, what do we do before school gets out to make sure that our students are in somewhere that is going to be safe and like help combat that? What is the education that we do during the school year to help parents understand that every moment is a teachable moment, right? Like it may just be you're asking a couple of extra, parent engagement. And it is that, because I think although our parents are very busy, we are very busy too, but I think it is that one or two questions that you ask while you're doing it, right? Of what color is this? And that's, I mean, it could be just that, right? Of asking what the color is or helping to count that. But we have to then like teach our parents and make sure that the people that are in those spaces are helping to empower our parents and the other parents to know those things and take it very seriously, because it is not something that we can take for granted.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was gonna say too, because Jania and Kamilah, both of you said something that was it was in my mind, like, you know, most parents think that you have to be very formal and structured when it comes to teaching your children. So they oftentimes leave it up to the teacher because they feel like they're not qualified to do those things. But even just simple platforms like this one and introducing them to stuff like this, sending them a link to this, like, hey, look at this real quick, or just a quick little, all you have to do is, like you said, asking those simple questions. It doesn't have to be so structured. And so, because I did that for the longest time. And, I was like, I think I'm driving my daughter crazy. So let me back up a little bit. Okay. And just making it simple, just, it's not always easy, but it is simple,
Right. And that goes back to like what we said, like towards the very beginning, like don't underestimate the power of just talking.
Yes.
Talking to them.
Yeah. And to be honest, like you as their parent are their very first teacher, right?
Absolutely.
So, like, you've already taught them so many things before they get to kindergarten and before their teacher. And so like you really do have the expertise. I think a lot of times, even I will tell like teachers, like that parent is the expert in their child of their child, right?
Absolutely.
And so I hope that like parents hear that and really receive that, because you may not have like an education degree or whatever the degree is, but you are the expert in your child, and so use that power to have these conversations and connect with your child.
And when they keep those like standards for themselves and keep those high standards, that goes into like the red and green flags that we're talking about when we're looking for these summer programs to have our kids, right? Like I don't want my kids to just sit there and be, okay, it's Tech Tuesday, so you just this all day. That's it. Like, what is there a structure? What do you guys do on a daily basis? Like, are there field trips? Where are you going? What do you do with these things? And just, I honestly, like, I think there are so many resources within OCPS that are just so untapped.
Underutilized,
The OCPS summer camps that are open, that are at a lot of elementary schools. I don't want to say most because that would be an assumption, but they're at a lot. And so they are operating with the same intention as the reading camp, which they have to do by law for a third grade portfolio. So like that's a tack on piece that's on there that I think is unexplored.
Yeah.
And it's way cheaper than like Science Center.
Right. Speaking of the Science Center, I'm so glad you said that, because this is something that I learned, that if you receive SNAP benefits, you are eligible to get a family membership at the Science Center at a reduced cost. I want to say it's like $30. I think I'm not going to quote the price, but that's something like Science for All is the program that it is.
Oh wow!
And that you're able to then like explore the Science Center, and it is at a significantly reduced rate. So Science for All, check that out, because we went as part of like building our partnerships. And there's so many things that you can do in the Science Center, and even just go and let them explore. But I thought that was something really neat that they do for families that receive SNAP benefits. So
it's wonderful.
Check that out.
I'm going to use that as a resource from my parents.
Science for All.
So Kamilah, you alluded to the last thing that's on my heart to talk about is like safe spaces, red flags and green flags, because I think about like physical and mental and emotional safety for kids. Like we talked a lot about like the academic piece and experiences to build that background knowledge, but having worked in child welfare a little bit, I know that like summer is a time where as like eyes aren't on kids as much, because they're not going to school, seeing that teacher every day who, is a mandatory reporter. Kids are at home because parents work. They might be staying with people who are not safe. So I think there's that piece. There's also parents like me who are sending their kids to a new summer camp for the first time. Right? It's not where he usually goes to school. So it's a totally new environment, new people. So I just wanted to briefly talk about like what are some red flags that we need to be looking out for, or what are green flags that we need that will help us feel safe and to know that our kids are safe in those environments. Because I know for me, my kid is 5 and I already say like, how's your day? Good. And if I let it stop there, that's going to be the end of the conversation, right? So like, how can we probe or tell from conversation with them that they are in a good spot? Or how do we know when something is left?
Yeah, I definitely think those questions are deeper, but not really, right? Of kind of what went well for you today at school, like what made you happy while you were at summer camp today, or is there something that like made you mad at school? I think about like, who are your friends? I ask my children this, like, who are your friends at camp? Because they should be able to name a couple of people that they have connected with, and if not, then that's gonna alert me to what's going on, right? Because they're little, and so they should be connecting with somebody. And I asked, like, who did you help today, or who helped you today in school, to see if that's safe. Of course, asking like, what did you learn today? And sometimes that could go either way. But maybe like, what's something that was exciting for you? And I don't know, just digging into some of those like feeling pieces too, and asking some of those questions. Because with my 4-year-old, I can't say like, did you feel safe today? That's like, what are you talking about? But I can't ask him like, what made him happy or what made him sad. Did anything make you mad today? Because he can get that baseline, and then just asking more about that.
Yeah, I agree. I like before, and I did it throughout the school year too. Like when I'm dropping Lucas to school, what are you excited for today? So like we set goals for the day. What are you going to do to achieve the goals? What are you going to do to be kind to somebody today? And then like recently for summer camp, I've been setting them off with like a 3-2-1 or like a roses and thorns type of thing. Like tell me 3 things that went well today. Tell me 2 things you learned, and learning can be anything, anywhere. And then 1 thing you're grateful for. So like setting them with this now and asking them, well, based on yesterday, like, what do you want to improve for today? What do you want to do differently? What went well and you want to do it again? And then through that, you're right, Jania, like the conversation, all behavior one more time, like it opens a door for them. And then that opens a door for me to then talk about like self-regulation and not being, not letting somebody else control your behavior. You can't control them, but you can control your reactions, thinking through it, being vocal, talking to the counselors. And then I think just because this is the same camp that runs the after school program, like I talk to these counselors, like, what is your ratio?
Yes.
How do you divide the kids? Because like Lucas's very first year, before I even knew them, he was being put with kindergartner, bringing home some questionable stuff. And I was like, oh no, let me get in there. Like that's a red flag for me, having all these kids of all ages together and not monitored as closely. You know what I mean? So
I definitely think that's one. I also thought about like safety and security. Just like, what does it take for me to get into the summer camp or into the preschool? And is anybody able just to come in? And am I able to come like when I want? Like if I want it to just pop up, can I do that? And like, what's the reaction that I get from the staff there? I also think about, do they greet my child like by his first name? Do they say good morning to my child, right? Do they acknowledge that like he has entered the space, or because there are like so many other kids in there, they just like, okay, there's another one in here, like those kind of things too. And like, what do they say when he leaves? Like those pieces I think are important to check out too.
Yes,
that's good. You got me thinking about a pop-up though.
Yeah. And they also, like, somebody has to always, whoever it is, I need the name of the director and a contact phone number. When I call, like, and I should be able to call any time of day, somebody that is responsible for my child should pick up.
Yep.
I love that. I just love this conversation. I feel like a theme for me has been about how like the academic and the social, like how all aspects of the kids are integrated, and we can't really like isolate like the academic for the social, and just how all of that's intertwined, and how we as parents can do things with our kids and find those teachable moments in all of those areas in everything that we do. And I feel like all of you are parents who, from your examples that you shared today, have a lot of conversations with your kids. And to me, that seems to kind of be the key to combat, to knowing if the safes are safe, if the spaces are safe, and helping to make sure, you know, they stay on track academically, and just the value of talking, right? Relationship building, vocabulary building, all that. So we are complete beings as women and mothers and professionals and all of that. So we like to end with just a question. What's one thing that you're excited about?
Jania.
Just in general, it could be professional, it could be a trip that you're going on. Like, what's one thing that you're like working on or doing that is exciting to you?
Cool.
I'm sorry, it broke up. Like, it just. What did you say we were excited about?
Anything. What's one thing that you're excited about?
One thing.
So I got to spend some time with the principal and the staff of my son's middle school last week in the Peace and Justice Summer Academy, which really does like take time to build a more peaceful and just and resilient community, but really has time for them to like reflect on themselves and talk about their identity and how that shows up in the classroom. There's a restorative justice piece of it, just lots of, it is a professional development, but there's also a lot of self-care that goes into that. And I got to spend some time with them, and I'm really nervous about middle school. But after spending that time with them, I was just really, I'm really hopeful of what the school year will look like for my son. This is the first time of him going to a school where his parent is not there, and it's middle school. So I'm just a little worried, but I feel like the leadership and the teachers and the staff are really making a huge effort of making sure that they are a safe place for our students. And that starts with them like taking care of themselves as well. And then how does that translate into the classroom? So I am really looking forward to August and what my son gets to experience at like this new big school.
Nice.
That is so good.
Yeah. My turn?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So something that I'm very excited about, and I was sharing it with Latrice before we got on, like we are doing this structured literacy, just a humongous initiative where we are educating teachers, like everybody, literally top down. Like our chief of schools has to come to this training, and we train her just like we would train the teacher in the classroom, so that everyone understands how children learn to read, and the ways that we can fully engage them so that the information moves from their long-term and working back and forth, and they're able to do this with automaticity. So I have seen, like, it's been really busy. It's been really a big initiative, but it has yielded a lot of really good, amazing results so far. And we've only just begun maybe a month or so ago. So we've also been hearing a lot of tremendous feedback, because it's almost as if the shackles are released for the teacher in the classroom. Because when you get a fifth grader who's struggling to read and they're being told, oh, you can only do comprehension, but you're missing the initial piece, right? It's not only the social and emotional being met so that they can get to the academics, but they have to be able to decode and to be able to read the words before they can understand. I'm telling you, it has been like, we've been fighting for this for a long time. So this year, it feels like the shackles are off. And it was actually a teacher who used that phrase that I stole because she has been wanting to do it. And she's been the rebel that's just been like, well, I close the door and I do what's best for my kids. But now it's like everybody has permission. So I'm really excited about that, especially as my child is moving to second grade. And second grade is that bridge because when they get to third grade, it is retention if they don't.
They need to learn. Mm-hmm.
Right. If they don't succeed, which then opens a whole other sad door if they get retained. So I'm
really glad
about that.
I'm really glad you shared that because I want people to know that great things are happening in public schools.
It really is. It really is. And it just has to be taken advantage of. And so we have been like literally training everybody in the ELC that will listen, like workbooks, posters, like it is truly going to be great when everyone can take and grab hold of this information and then utilize it and apply it for our babies. So I'm looking forward to how it's gonna be for my child personally, but so many other kids. And then maybe when I go to the Jones graduation, it won't be a quarter.
You see a little bit more. I love that. Yes, I love the fact that you said you're teaching from the top down because now everybody's speaking the same language.
That's
now.
right.
It's not like somebody's over here doing this and there's no different expectation, or I don't know how to do this, so here everybody's getting the same thing.
And that was that was a big issue when we had learning communities. One learning community would speak one language, the other would say different things in a different language. And we lucked out with our like superintendent being so like, yes, absolutely. And if you're not on board, that's okay. But there are other districts to work on.
Ooh. Right.
So
she said,
well,
that's awesome. What about you, Latrice?
Lord, there's so many things that my daughter's going to middle school too, so my heart has just been
I feel it for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I am excited because she's excited about going to it. She doesn't like show any type of reservation whatsoever. She's not like her mom, none whatsoever. But I'm also excited because my school is moving to a new location, and so I am excited about that. I get to work with some of my older babies, so I'm really excited about working with them again because coming to me, I built a pretty good relationship with them. I would say, look at this. But
I'm trying so hard to focus.
But I'm just excited overall about some new experiences, of course, continuing on with this podcast and seeing where this goes. And, yes.
All right, so I'll close us out. I'm excited about this shirt that we launched. The called the Anti-Colorblind Message Tee. And what I'm excited about is that so many people, like male, female, various ethnicities, we've shipped shirts across the country, as far east as like Texas, as far north as New
Texas,
York. So many people are getting on board and feel like it's a great way to start conversations about racial equity. So I'm excited about the people that are investing into it. So, well, thank you all for a wonderful conversation. You four, since we have a visitor.
Surprise guest.
Right. You can follow the podcast on YouTube. We're also on Facebook and Instagram as Equity Learning Bridge. Thank you and see you soon.